What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, and the New York Giants' prized addition of the offseason was Darren Waller. And today we want to talk about the impact that he's going to have and why acquiring him was such a genius decision by general manager Joe Schoen and everyone else in the Giants front office. Acquiring this guy on a cheap contract for a mid-round pick, knowing the kind of impact that he can have on this offense is something to be really excited about heading into 2023. So we're going to go ahead and discuss that in today's episode. But before we dive into that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Fireside Giants. Check us out on Facebook as well. And before we get into the discussion, I'm going to give some fan shout outs to a few more of you who commented on yesterday's episode. Ultra Crimson Lotus, you're always fighting for the number one spot to be the first comment. DRWOW and Applesauce Joe 2332. Thank you to you guys for your comments, and also shout out to me because it's my birthday. So cheers to that. Without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on the acquisition of Darren Waller this offseason?
I think that move was borderline genius. And for a good reason, guys. I mean, I'm doing great, by the way. I just wanted to jump right into Darren Waller because the dude, that move, $4 million cap hit, guys, to get essentially the upside of a wide receiver one. Darren Waller is going to transform what this offense looks like because we haven't had a tight end like this in a very long time. Like, he's like, I want to say what we wanted Evan Ingram to be, Darren Waller is. You know what I mean? The type of receiver that he's capable of being. Evan Ingram always had that upside. Had a really good season with Jacksonville, actually, but the drops were pretty prominent. Darren Waller's had 2 seasons with over 1,100 yards. That's WR1 numbers. Like, he had 9 touchdowns in 2020. The last 2 years, though, a little bit injury prone, a little bit injury riddled, but I also think the Raiders just like completely stopped using him in the way that he preferred, and I think that the chemistry between himself and the organization started to fall apart. And he even said, like, I felt like I was going to be traded. Like, I felt like my time here was coming to an end. Obviously, Giants get him for a 3rd-round pick, but a 3rd-round pick for a player who's 30 years old, he's still very much in his prime, probably tailing towards the end of it as a physical specimen, but otherwise still capable of producing at a very high level. What I like the most about Darren Waller is that he promotes the newfound narrative that the Giants are trying to be more explosive offense. Now, Anthony, you wrote something this morning about this topic exactly, the Giants becoming an explosive offense. And Daniel Jones even said, like, to be an explosive offense, you just need to actually execute plays to the best of their ability. You need to execute the plays and not be running around aimlessly all the time, trying to make those big plays happen. A lot of it can be orchestrated. Darren Waller is going to exercise the seams. He's going to be a great option deep down the field. But at the same time, Waller actually produced a ridiculous amount of production in the 0 to 9 yard from the line of scrimmage rate. Like that in 2020, he was dominant there, and I'll give you some context into actually how great he was. From 0 to 9 yards from the line of scrimmage, Waller produced 622 yards and 3 touchdowns back in 2020 during his best season as a professional. He put 5.7 yards after the reception, so his yak, 5.7 yards, catching passes 10 yards or below from the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's essentially like he's catching a pass 0 to 9 yards away, and then he's running for almost 6 yards in addition. He had 40 first downs in that portion of the field back then. 40 first downs. The guy was impossible to tackle. So you're not just looking at a player that's going to exercise those deeper portions of the field. He's also going to dominate in the shorter portions. In 20-plus yards downfield, he had, I think he had 7 catches, 20-plus yards downfield, 198 yards, and 2 touchdowns. For context, guys, Daniel Jones only had 359 yards and 2 touchdowns last year, throwing at 20-plus yards downfield. Waller, in 1 season alone, accumulated more than half of that and the 2 touchdowns. He is going to add another element to this offense that has not been recognized by this team in quite a while. So what he's capable of doing for us is unparalleled from what we had in the past couple of years, aside from OBJ when he was still on this team. Like, he was the last guy that really was that elite deep downfield threat that we could count on, that could get open and just make those ridiculous catches. Darren Waller is also a massive human being. Like, he is tall, he's physical, he's big. He can go up and get those catches, but he also has pretty solid hands. Has had a couple seasons where he had some drops, but otherwise has been pretty consistent in that category. But Anthony, when you're looking at Darren Waller and how he can impact this game, it's not just the downfield, but the guy picks up yards after the catch on the shorter portions of the field. That's really what stood out to me. I was like, wait a second, like, this guy isn't just a dominant tight end when he's going going downfield, he can also kick serious ass in the shorter portions of the field as a security blanket underneath, which is I think something that we haven't really been discussing very much lately. So what are your thoughts on that and the impact he can have as a Giant in 2023?
Yeah, I'll give you Daniel Jones's thoughts on that exactly because there was a great quote from Daniel Jones recently on the Giants Huddle podcast. He said, quote, "I think more often than not, the way you create explosive plays is just executing every play exactly how it's supposed to be done. You love the bombs over the defense's head, but it's also the catch and runs where we set up a block or we throw an accurate ball that lets the guy continue, keep his speed, make a guy miss, and then there's an explosive play there. There's so many things that can factor into that. We've got to make sure we're executing as precisely, as well as we can, as consistently as possible to give us a chance to make those plays." So that's Daniel Jones saying that creating explosive plays, while we love those 20-plus yard passes, and we've been talking about that a lot, that's not the end-all, be-all of creating explosive plays. Oftentimes, Daniel Jones stands in the pocket, he puts an accurate pass on the money, lets the guy catch and run, turn upfield, and there you go. There's an explosive play. We could think of a few of those. How about Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton? Darius Slayton had the one down the left sideline. I think it was against the Texans. Long one, short into the flat, but an accurate ball, well-timed. Slayton has the opportunity to turn upfield and score a touchdown. So you got to think of plays like that as well. Those are explosive plays. It's not all about Daniel Jones standing in the pocket and throwing the ball 20-plus yards downfield, although that will be a greater part of the offense this upcoming season. We know that Mike Kafka, Brian Dable, they're working hard to incorporate more deep passing concepts into the offensive system, especially as Daniel Jones gets more comfortable in the system. And I will say Tyrod Taylor had a pretty good quote about that as well, talking about Daniel Jones and his comfortability going into this year. He said, quote, "Obviously more confident." Not that he lacked confidence at all. I would just say whenever you're in a system for the returning year, obviously you're comfortable within what you have to do. Obviously, there's always ways to be better and things to get better at. And I think he's attacked each and every one of those areas of his game. Full steam ahead this offseason and just try to be better in every aspect. So Tyrod Taylor admiring Daniel Jones's work ethic this offseason, describing him as more confident than ever going into year two of the Brian Dable and Mike Kafka system. So I will say, when you look at Daniel Jones and the comfortability that he has, we talked about this earlier this week, a lot of that comfort has to stem from the increase in talent around him. So tying it back into the Darren Waller discussion, Daniel Jones has never had a playmaker of this caliber from a receiving standpoint in the offense. Yes, he's had Saquon Barkley, so he's had an elite playmaker in the offense for the majority of his career. When Saquon Barkley was healthy and on the field, he's got an elite playmaker out there with him. But in the receiving game, he hasn't really had that. Sure, Barkley can be elite in some aspects, receiving out of the backfield, but in terms of having a guy line up in the slot or out wide or even in line, Darren Waller is a different level of talent than anything that Daniel Jones has had during his NFL career and even during his collegiate career at Duke. Jones has just never had good receivers or playmakers to share the ball with throughout the entirety of his career. So going into this season, I'm excited for Darren Waller to be in the offense because of something that you mentioned earlier, Alex. How Evan Engram, we wanted him to be a certain level of player, and he didn't reach that despite his unique playing style. But Darren Waller is essentially that playing style on steroids. Like, that's what Evan Engram wanted to be. And something that really excites me about that fact in particular, go back and look at Evan Engram's receiving stats when he was with the Giants because his target share was astronomical. Daniel Jones loved to force feed the ball to Evan Engram. Evan Engram honestly could not handle that workload, had a lot of dropped passes, a lot of missed opportunities, but Darren Waller can handle that workload, and we shouldn't see many drops or missed opportunities from Waller. But what we should see is Daniel Jones slinging the rock to Waller on a very consistent basis. It's that particular type of player, not necessarily a go up and get it contested catch guy, but a big physical receiver who separates with speed. That's what Daniel Jones likes, and that's what the Giants have now in Darren Waller. They had it with Evan Engram, but they have it on an even greater level now with Darren Waller. So I'm really thinking that a lot of fans are sleeping on how great this connection could be. Because again, just look at what Daniel Jones was doing when Evan Engram was on the team, how much he loved to throw to Evan Engram. That was his favorite target. Whether it should have been or not is up for debate, right? Because of how unreliable his hands were. But that was Daniel Jones's favorite target. So you keep that into consideration, thinking about the playing style of Evan Engram, that's a very similar playing style to what Darren Waller has, but Darren Waller, twice the player that Evan Engram is in his prime. So we're going to see some big things from Daniel Jones to Darren Waller, and that's something that has me incredibly excited for this upcoming season. So, Alex, what are your thoughts on that in particular? The fact that Daniel Jones going into this year more comfortable with better playmakers around him, but that particular style of playmaking out of Evan Engram translating to Darren Waller could propel a really big year out of this duo.
Look, I think the combination, the chemistry that's the Giants are facilitating with Daniel Jones and Waller could be a connection that we haven't seen in quite a long time. Like we remember the connections of Eli and OBJ and Eli and Victor Cruz and Eli and Hakeem Nicks. And it's a quarterback and receiver connection that is unbreakable. You know what I mean? Like you don't find them all the time, but when you find them, you got to keep them around. I think they're trying to foster that development between DJ. Like DJ, I don't feel like has ever had that like above average connection with the receiver. We saw flashes of it last year with Isaiah Hodgins, who like ran those secondary routes, got open, gained the trust of DJ, and then DJ felt like comfortable throwing the ball, maybe in opportunities that weren't so probable. But I think like now Darren Waller could be a guy like that. I also think Daniel Bellinger could be a guy like that. I think that they could be really nice security blankets, but also explosive playmakers, more so on the Waller side, indicating kind of like Jones hasn't had that connection. This could be the first time we see that level of connection between a quarterback and a receiver that isn't Eli Manning or somebody. You know what I mean? Like it's the first time DJ can really have that. And that's what's going to help propel this offense forward. You know, like Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones have been on the same page for a long time now. Like they're really good together on the field. You see the play action. DJ is one of the best play action. You see the way he pulls the ball away. He really sells it. Like he's one of the best play action guys I've seen in a while. And I think that he really has benefited from better coaching and ultimately adding that chemistry, adding that duo with a receiver is going to help take it to another level. But Waller, like you kind of said, Evan Ingram, like the qualities that Evan Ingram had, the speed, the athleticism, the ability to make those explosive plays, Waller has that, but I think he's going to be even better because he has the frame to do it. And he also like, he catches the ball a little bit more efficiently. You remember like Evan Ingram would kind of jump and like try to catch it and he would drop it and he was kind of just a little bit inconsistent. If he didn't have those issues, Ingram would have been a really good tight end for us for a long time. But similar to what Andy Bischoff said, our tight ends coach, Waller's no spring chicken when it comes to blocking either. Waller's a capable blocker. Like he can get into the mix and make some stuff happen. But that's why you got Bellinger, who's a tremendous run blocker and a guy that's above average in that regard. So I'm very curious to see how they split these reps up. And that's kind of like the last point I want to make is that I think that Waller's going to end up playing 40+% of his snaps in the slot, maybe another like 20% out wide. You're going to see them moving him around the field because that level of unpredictability is going to open up options for Saquon, for Daniel Bellinger, for Jalen Hyatt, for Slayton and Isaiah Hodgins and Wandale and Paris Campbell and all these guys we have. That level of attention that he's going to command is going to benefit everybody. You know what I mean? Everybody's going to benefit from that. Saquon Barkley was the only guy that warranted that type of attention. Now we have another guy that's going to force defenses to keep their eyes on. And when you have two guys all the time looking at Saquon, two guys all the time looking at Darren Waller, suddenly Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt are 20 yards deep downfield and no one's covering them. You know what I mean? Paris Campbell's running a crossing route. Nobody's on him. You know, these are the type of things the Giants are going to do: speed, athleticism, but the attention that these other big playmakers command is going to really help open up the offense. And I think that's going to be a catalyst that may go, kind of undiagnosed until we see it in the regular season.
Yeah, and I think that what you just hit on there is the key to success for Darren Waller. You know, you only get the most out of him if you maximize his versatility, his ability to play every single position on offense, essentially. Like he'll line up as a solid tight end. He will line up in the slot and be one of the best jumbo slot wide receivers in the NFL. And then he can also go out wide and be a true prototypical X receiver if he needs to be. So that's how you maximize the acquisition of Darren Waller. You don't just, place him at tight end and have him run drag routes and hitch routes like a normal tight end would. You don't just have him in pass protection and run blocking. You move him all over your offense and you find creative ways to get him in favorable matchups and get him in one-on-one situations to get himself open and create those explosive plays, whether he's going downfield or catching and running and creating an explosive play with his legs. That's where Darren Waller is going to shine. It's the fact that he can move anywhere on the offense and find ways to make big time plays. And that's why I'm so excited for him, because that versatility, that's going to be fun to watch. Like I am dreaming of watching Brian Dable and Mike Kafka come up with such creative ways to get the ball into Darren Waller's hands. It's always the goal when you're an offensive coordinator. Get the ball in the hands of your best playmakers. The Giants in Saquon Barkley's rookie season, that dude was getting 15 targets in some games in the receiving game, plus 20 handoffs. They were always finding ways to get their best playmaker the ball. And you know that with the genius of Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, they're going to be doing the same thing this upcoming season. Yeah, they're going to find a lot of ways to get Saquon Barkley the ball, but now they also have to figure out some creative ways to get Darren Waller the ball. And that's just going to add another element to the offense that's been missing for years. Having an elite receiver that you want to make your game plan surround. You want to create your game plan to get the ball in that guy's hands. That's a big difference than running it through a running back or running it running it through just your quarterback, right? Because I think that last year, what we got down to was the Giants oftentimes just trying to get the ball in Daniel Jones's hands, get him running and get him loose and figuring out ways to get him open with some rushing lanes. But now it's not all about the running game. They have a true weapon in the passing game, and that's going to transform this New York Giants offense this upcoming season. So again, I can't wait to watch this unfold. It's going to be exciting. And we're going to continue to update you on everything New York Giants related right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Fireside Giants, and make sure to go check us out on Facebook as well. We appreciate you all for all of the support and for tuning in daily to Fireside Giants. And of course, we will go ahead and catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.